And welcome back to the Pursuit of Progress. This is Ben Adams. I'm here with my co-host Adam Lang, and we are here for another great episode. Adam, how's your week been, and how are you doing?
Yeah, what's up? Happy Friday. Doing really good, minus the freezing cold weather we got going on today in Denver. It's going to be an interesting few days ahead of us with the polar freeze, whatever they're calling it, just with the sub-zero
Arctic
temps
freeze.
and Arctic freeze. There we go. So little minimal on the plans for the weekend. Going to just kind of hunker down and just try and stay inside. What about yourself?
Kind of same thing. I think the high tomorrow is 11. The high on Sunday is 9, and then the high on Monday is like 4 or 5 degrees. So just try to survive the next 3 days, but gonna stay indoors. We'll probably do a little recording, work on some YouTube content, and just really stay in that grind, stay disciplined. Still gonna be doing the things that are important. Getting to the gym, doing my reading, those other things that we've talked about. But it'll be nice to have the 3-day weekend as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Saturday night's football game. Also, Chiefs and Dolphins. That's going to be pretty fun. Hopefully to watch. Hopefully it's a close game and the Dolphins don't choke with the unusual weather for their team.
I always find it interesting that I think you're a closet Dolphins fan.
Ever
You
since
love
Ace
the.
Ventura,
That's right.
laces out.
Well, you had a fun week. Tell us where you've been, what you've been up to, and how this week's gone.
Yeah, so I went out to a real estate conference out in Las Vegas. I was out there for 4 nights. I just got back yesterday. Had a good time. Just went out there solo, but had a few different other real estate connections, different agents around the country that I'm connected with through it's called the Legit Agents, which is just my EXP Realty, kind of a group of realtors that we connect with on a weekly basis.
Hmm.
And one of our leaders, one of the founders of the Legit Agents, his name is Will Grimes. He's a buddy of mine and one of the um, speakers at WealthCon this year. So mainly just went out to support him, but also just network and also just learn from some other really high level performers this was more specifically with real estate investing, but just overall just got a ton of value from just seeing some of these other people that are out there and just crushing it when it comes to just rentals and investing.
Mm.
So also got a chance to go to the Las Vegas Sphere on Sunday night and check that out. I've been really excited to see that in person. That's that big kind of
Okay.
globe looking new installation that they have in Vegas. It's like over $2 billion project that they have, and you see all the cool images on the outside of it, but then on the inside there's this like 6 or 7 story tall, kind of like an IMAX type experience, but multiply
Mm.
that by 10. I mean, just this
Yeah.
enormous screen, 18K resolution. It's like an hour long video that was kind of like a Planet Earth type movie that was super super cool. So for any listeners or viewers out there, if you guys are considering going to Vegas here sometime in the near future, definitely put that on your list. It's a must see. It's just crazy where technology is going when it comes to video and just capturing that kind of experience. So had a good time with that. And
That's
yeah, man,
great.
looking forward to sharing some more with you.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more. And you mentioned the speaker lineup. So who was out there, and what were some of your biggest takeaways from the 3 or 4 days of the event?
Yeah, so I kind of put together a list I'll share with you guys today. I put down 7 of kind of the main takeaways that I got from it. As far as the speaker lineup goes, the main keynote speaker was Tim Tebow, so that was cool to see him in person, being obviously a Denver Broncos fan and having him be also in Denver for a few years. Other than that, though, just a lot of really high performing investors. There's a guy named Thatch, who's this Vietnamese immigrant that's now got over $100 million of real estate. A guy named Chris Crone, which I really enjoyed listening to. And then also just Ryan Pineda, who's the host and the guy that puts on this every year. It's just cool to
Yeah.
also see him. speak in person. It was a little bit of a it wasn't a religious event, but there's definitely some Christian kind of background with some of the just topics, and I thought that was a very unique, kind of a cool way to see one of these events take place. Just how it was unique, where it had a little bit of a religious perspective on some of
Mm,
the speakers' topics, and so I enjoyed that as well.
okay.
And then the other, there's probably maybe 15 speakers altogether, but and then the other one that I also really enjoyed was just Will, the guy that I went out to support and see, Will Grimes. So,
I'm going to put you on the hot seat here. Who is your favorite speaker?
well, if Will, if you're listening, you're obviously one of the people on that high list. I had seen his keynote speech before when he was kind of practicing it, so I really enjoyed his. His was very unique in the sense that it was more just about experiences that he's gone through um, as a Marine, as a
Okay.
police officer, just kind of sharing some more kind of real life stories, which I thought was a different type presentation compared to a lot of the other ones that were definitely more focused on real estate. And then definitely Thatch, I thought he was really, really good, just tons of energy. And I guess the other one that I haven't mentioned yet is this guy. We were talking about this earlier. I forgot his name, Chris something. He's the clever investor. Um,
Cody.
we'll put we'll put all these guys' info down in the show notes after the episode premieres as well. What were you going to say? What's his name?
I think Cody, right?
Or Cody? Yeah, correct.
Okay. Well, I know that you put together a list of some of your biggest takeaways. Let's start the countdown. What were some of your biggest takeaways, and any recurring themes? Takeaways. What impacted you the most from all the different speakers and from some of the things that you learned out there?
So yeah, this was one of the coolest, I think, perspectives that you can have as a listener, as a viewer at one of these events is seeing all these different people that have been successful and then just kind of picking apart what's the common denominator between all of them. So this first one was without a doubt. So my first takeaway would just be just two words, just take action. And that was something
Yeah.
that was a very common theme with just you're never going to have a perfect environment to get started. You're never going to have everything figured out before getting started. You just need to just have the confidence and the faith that when you're going to get started and put in 100% of your effort, you're going to be successful. And if you're not, that's just a indicator that you just need to keep going and work through that to become successful. Just learning from
Mhm.
your mistakes and just kind of keep going. But yeah, I mean, take action. I know you and I have talked about that a lot in the past as well. I know that's what one of the things that probably helped you with your success with your vacation rentals in Arizona is just being willing to put one foot in front of the other and just take action.
Yeah, that's right. And I've tried to apply that in so many different areas of my life. When I got my first vacation rental in Arizona, I didn't have a property manager. I didn't have any connections down there. I didn't know who the handyman person was going to be, the pool person. To really run a successful short-term vacation rental business with multiple homes, you need to have an entire team. Pool person, hot tub person, handyman, roofer, maintenance, cleaners, property manager, someone to communicate with the guests. There's so many different roles and responsibilities. And at the time, I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't have any of that stuff set up. So, just an act of faith. I felt compelled. I found a deal that I felt really good about. I felt like it was a strong value deal. It had recently just been remodeled, so it was ready to go. Purchased it, and then COVID happened. Really, just a couple of months later. It was kind of a blessing though, because it gave us the opportunity to go down there. We actually lived in the property for about 4 months. We were able to get it furnished, and during that time is when we really focused on building relationships with other people and other parties. I say we, I'm referencing me and the kids. But that's right, and that's one takeaway that I've learned that you just mentioned. Just take action. I think a lot of people make the mistake. They want to read all the books. They want to be over prepared. They want to try and be perfect, and that's just not how it works. The best way, even like with starting the YouTube channel, even starting with this podcast, we are taking action. We know there are things that we can improve on, and we will. but we're not going to wait until the time's right and everything's perfect. We're going right now.
Yep. And a lot of the things that you are going to need to inevitably do, you're not even going to realize them until you take action and then get to those places along the journey to, figure it out. I mean, you're not going to even
Hmm.
know what all the questions are until you take action and just get started. So, whether that be with, again, buying their first rental property, or you can apply that to anything in life. But that was definitely one of the biggest takeaways, was just taking action. And obviously, you still need to be educated and do your homework ahead of time and put yourself up to the best chances for success. But there still needs to be that time where you just need to take action.
Yeah, we're not saying be irresponsible. We're not saying don't do your homework or be uninformed. Still do that stuff, but then there's a time when you need to go take action.
Yeah, these conferences, these events, I've been to a few other ones. Grant Cardone and just some other similar ones to that style of just 2 3 days of speakers. And one thing you always just kind of notice is there's a ton of people that go to these that they don't use this term very publicly at the events, but I've heard them coined as just being a wantrepreneur instead of an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
meaning that you're just always just reading, watching the next video, buying the next course, instead of just, again, taking action. So
Yeah. Yeah,
I
along
think
those
I
same lines, I know something else that you're passionate about, and I believe this was also one of the themes that you wanted to chat about was approach to adversity and how to really effectively embrace failure.
Yep, that was a good segue. Yeah, number two of my takeaways is embracing failure. And you see these people that are up on stage, and these people on social media, in the news, on TV, wherever it may be, and you just see them at this one point in their life where they happen to be on a high. So obviously everybody goes through ups and downs, ebbs and flows, highs and
Hmm.
lows. You're always seeing these people at their high and given this false sense of it's just how it always is for these people. They've been born with something different in them. They've got this natural ability, this talent, this luck,
Yeah.
whatever it is you want to consider it being. But in reality, you're not seeing the 10, 15, 20, 30 years of tons of failures for them to get to that point. um, so just really, again, another common theme and takeaway from this was these people that were on stage all talking about that failure. And it's hard enough just to be confident and courageous enough to take that first step, going back to the first takeaway of taking action. Once you've taken
Hmm.
action, you're inevitably going to be faced with adversity, and you're going to need to have that failure when it comes into your life, being willing to embrace it and push through, and really see that just as an opportunity for you to even further dial in your game plan, your business strategy, whatever is lacking at that point. Because the failures are what identify what needs to be improved. And that process is really what separates, again, these super successful people, is they're just looking at failure from a completely different lens, where they're okay with it. It's not the end of the world when they fail. They're just
Yeah.
almost looking at it as a gift, or a just an ability for them to then move forward even further down the path that's eventually going to get them to the success that they're looking for.
I don't know if I've ever shared this with you before, but one of my favorite Bible verses is from the book of James. It's James 1, 2 to 4. And that specific verse talks about how we should actually receive trials, tribulations, and adversity into our life with pure joy. That's actually the language that's used in the verse. So when things come into your life, you should receive those with pure joy because it's an opportunity to grow, to become more mature, to ultimately persevere. And I think what you're describing, in your dialogue there is a life skill. I think this is something I think a lot of us look at problems and adversity as just that. We look at it as a problem. We get focused on the problem or the adversity. It could be financial, it could be a personal relationship, a romantic relationship, career, so many different things. And we're not taught in our education system how to look at adversity as an opportunity. And when you have that approach, it doesn't matter what comes into your life. If you have that approach and that mindset, everything that comes into your life is a blessing because you are either going to, have a success, or if it is an adversity, it's going to be an opportunity to grow. It's going to give you more experience. It's going to give you an opportunity to learn a new skill and overcome. But you have to have the right mindset. And that is what is not taught in our education system. And it's all about that vision, that mindset, and our approach to adversity.
And one last thing I would add to that is, you know, everybody's going to have stuff that, they approach or some different things. Everybody's going to have things that come up in life that are challenges and adversities and these different types of failures. But I think it really takes a larger scale failure
Hmm.
to then, in hindsight, look back at and realize that, hey, you know what? That actually wasn't all that bad. I got through it. I made it a lot more of a big ordeal in my head than it actually was. Just speaking from my personal experience with my, maybe do a podcast on this at some point in the future, but just with my previous business and having that go right into COVID and having to make some pretty drastic decisions with the direction to take that company. In the moment, it was, you know, one of the hardest, things I thought at the time that I was ever going to go through in my life. Fast forward a couple years and looking back at it, I mean, in reality, it just really wasn't that big of a deal. Life went
Hmm.
on, and again, those lessons learned from that, even if it's in a completely different field, different industry, maybe it's a personal challenge that you go through, and then you can still apply that to a business decision. It's just as long as you just look at, why life happened to you in that way and realizing that it was
Hmm.
happening for you to grow and
Yeah.
to improve and be set up for success later on. Just having that mindset, I think, is very, very important.
Yeah, I'll add on to that really briefly. One of my biggest challenges that happened in my life is my divorce from 2018. So about 6 years ago, it was not something that I was planning, and at the time, it was an incredibly traumatic experience. One of the most difficult things that I've ever gone through. But what I realized in the months and really even the years after that is it was such a gift because it was an opportunity for me to rediscover who I am as a leader, as a man, as a parent. And I had kind of lost my identity with those things along the way. And it was just this beautiful gift to rediscover and reset sail, if you will, on the life that I wanted to pursue. And now I can look back with my ex and I can almost, and I can, I can look back with her and actually appreciate that she had the courage to do what she did. And I'm thankful that she did what she did. Um, and I have no ill will. I have no hard feelings whatsoever, and I'm actually thankful. And so that's an example, kind of like what you were saying, one of those big life events that is disguised as adversity, but it really can be just this incredible blessing.
Love that. Yeah. So,
Talk to us about. I know that you said you had seven things. What was point number three?
yeah. So number three is just to not overcomplicate things. This is kind of a hot, take on just. I hear this a lot right now in the self-help space, or even just within some of the different coaching and just different stuff that I got going on with real estate. But just the idea of, whatever you're working on, whatever you're focused on, go a mile deep on that, as opposed to just being surface level and doing 10 things at once and being kind of a mile wide. Just,
Yeah.
focusing on what's really going to move the needle and just putting the majority of your attention on that. I know that Warren Buffett's talked about this in the past too, about the 80-20 rule, where you just need to
Hmm.
identify, what the 20%, and you should do this on a quarterly basis. And you could do this um, in a personal goal, as far as, like losing weight or just trying to be whatever it is. But for business, just identifying what that 20% is that's going to have the greatest impact and directly affect moving the needle, moving your company forward, actually generating more revenue or more income, especially if it's, again, related to a business type experience. But just having that 20% be what you're focusing on, that other
Hmm.
80% either delegate it to somebody else or just understand that, that's not important at the moment. You need to be focused on the 20%. Um,
Because the twenty
Hopefully I
percent
explained that
is driving 80% of your results.
correct. Thank you. I
Okay.
knew I missed a little part of that. Correct. Yep. So just identifying what that 20% is, and then just going a mile deep on that, and just really being fully engaged into just that. Just so limiting the distractions, limiting the amount of balls you're juggling, and just focusing on, what's important. And that's kind of the same concept as this overcomplicating things, just sticking to just fewer tasks and just understanding that this other stuff, while it may seem important, if it's not generating revenue and just again being a driving force to take the company in a in the right direction, then it's just something that doesn't need to be really worried about at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's such a great point. What I've learned as we're on our YouTube journey, our podcast journey, I've gotten to follow and learn from some other influencers and mentors, and they all have a lot of this. The ones that are successful have some of the very same or similar habits. They're all extremely intentional. They're very well organized. They're very intentional with their time, and they're doing what you described. They're really going deep on their work. They're looking at it from a quality perspective instead of a quantity perspective. And one of my favorite books of all time, and I just am so obsessed with this book, I can't stop talking about it. 10x is easier than 2x. That's exactly what he talks about. And he even uses your exact reference there, the 80-20 rule, and learning to delegate and let go of those things so you can focus on your unique ability as a person, because that's what makes you individually great. And we all have different gifts. We need to cultivate those and identify what those are. Once we've identified those, let go of the other things, of the 80%. Stop doing it, hire it out, delegate it. But if you want to be great, you really have to go deep on the quality on that 20%. And then when you get that, then it's time to transform again.
Yeah, and that's where I was saying, like, quarterly, just kind of doing a self analysis. If you're just a one man operation, or if you have a company that you're working with a team of employees and just coworkers, just every quarter reevaluating, and then if needed, purpose what that 80-20 is. Because you don't want stuff falling through the cracks. You still need to at least be addressing the other 80%, but just having that again delegated. So
Talk to us about point number 4.
So number 4 is basically just teamwork, or just really understanding that nobody that's at that highest level has gotten there on their own. Just talking through just the importance of surrounding yourself with other people, um, being very aware of this and conscious and intentional about putting yourself even just in the room with those people. And that's kind of a selling point for a lot of these event organizers, such as the one that I was at, as far as just surrounding yourself with like-minded people, people that maybe have value in a different area that could help you, and vice versa. But just really understanding that you're not going to be you're gonna run into some ceilings, as far as growing your company or your business, if you don't just lean into the fact that you're going to need to just bring other people on board with you and help them bring up their careers and elevate them, and in turn they're going to help elevate you. So I mean, even just talking through, like, some of these recent sports examples, like Tom Brady when he retired. I mean, obviously he's one of the
Mhm.
greatest to ever play the game. However, he didn't do that by himself. He had trainers, dietitians, his wife at the time, his family, friends. I mean, there's so many people, an entourage for people that are performing at that level, that are maybe not necessarily in front of the camera, or you're not seeing those people, but it's a lot more than just the individual.
Yeah, that
Uh,
is so powerful. And do me a favor, turn around on your bookshelf and grab that book that you have right there. There's no plan B for your A game. I want to share a story from this book right here. It goes exactly in line, and he has the author's name is Bo Eason, and I love this book because what you're describing, um, as far as having a successful team of people. For those of you that don't know, Bo is a retired NFL, played in the NFL. But this story in this book that he shares is so powerful. So growing up, he grew up in a small rural town in California, And the high school that he went to, no one in the history of the high school before he got there ever made it to the NFL. And he was there in the 80s, maybe the mid 80s, so 35, 40 years ago. And since he was there, since he graduated, no one has gone to the NFL. So no one went to the NFL before, no one's gone to the NFL since. Guess how many kids out of his graduating class made it to the NFL? Five. There were
Wow.
five kids in his graduating class that made it to the NFL. Not a single person before, not a single person after. But it's because one person, Bo, had an incredible vision to achieve this incredible dream, and he got his friends to not necessarily buy into his dream, but they all just started working together. And when you start working together, you start pushing each other, you start developing the same habits, and it's just an incredibly powerful example of what can happen when you work together. And that specific story from Bo is one that I share with my kids all the time. There's another story in there that we can share another time. But that's the Jerry Rice story. Just an
Hmm.
incredible, second story there as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to share that one. I'm anxious to just kind of get an update on Bo Eason, the guy you're talking about. I know he also talked about his son having really high aspirations, and from like very early on, like 5, 6 years old, just being 100% committed to his goal of I think also becoming a was it a basketball or NFL? I think also NFL,
I
right?
think both. Yeah,
Or both.
both.
Or yeah, it wasn't actually the he wants to be two sports. Anyways, just seeing how that comes to fruition, just with a dad and somebody that's backing him like Bo, that's seen it firsthand, how the that does have some merit to it and some success if you follow the process.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. What is our fifth topic?
So number 5 is getting laser focused on your why or your core values. And again, these are some terms that I feel like are kind of fluff. You hear them a lot. With the again, the self-help space and people that are talking through improvement and self-improvement, all that kind of stuff. But there is definitely a ton of value in going deep into this, and just more than anything, this understanding what your why is, what your purpose is. And if you don't have that, you're going to have a very, very, very challenging, and I would argue you're never going to get to the finish line if you have a very you know grand goal, because you don't have that reason when it's 5 a.m. and you got to go train, and you got to get up and go do these things that nobody else is lifting you up to get out of bed and go. What's the underlying motivation to do this day in, day out, where you're not seeing results on a 1, 2, 3 day type basis, but again, over 1, 2, 3 years, you're going to start to see those results. But it's those fine little daily tasks that are very difficult to do consistently.
Yeah.
And if you don't have your why, your purpose, it's a good chance, a very high chance of failure. And I'll just mention one last thing on this and get your feedback on this one as well. But what's I've always thought of as a very important tool when it comes to improvement is a saying: if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So when it comes to growing a company, improving on certain aspects of your life, you need to have a what they call a KPI, a key performance indicator, which basically is just some form of hard fact number, for example, that that if this KPI is met, you're on the right direction. If you didn't hit that
Mhm.
KPI, you're not taking a step forward. So it could be, if you're in sales, it could be making 10 calls a day. That's something as simple as, it needs to be simplified down where it's just very black and white. You either did it or you didn't do it. And what
Mhm.
I thought was really cool, something new that I learned on this one, is a couple of these very high performers. Chris Crone was one of them. Just as a quick side note, Chris Crone has over 6,500 single family homes that he owns that are all on rentals. Without a doubt, he's going to be a billionaire in the next, 10, 15 years, if not sooner. Fairly young guy, probably in his early 40s, from Utah, just very driven individual. But he talked about, instead of a KPI, key performance indicator, he likes to call it a KPI, a key purpose indicator. So really identifying what metrics that, again, that are measurable are also, however, you know, going towards your purpose. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 where you're
Hmm.
tracking not only just the progress of whatever needs to get done, those tasks, but making it where it's also for your purpose. I don't have an example of that to share with you when it relates to myself, but I'm trying to figure that out over the next couple weeks.
I
But I
have
think
one
that
that
would
I
be
can
cool.
share. But
Okay.
I was going to ask though, and correct me if I'm wrong. Your why, it can't just be money. I mean, money is not a strong enough
No,
why, right?
absolutely not. No. So, it could be, educating and empowering other people to find success in real estate, similar to how you have, or, it could be
Yeah.
it has to be something that's serving a greater purpose than just money.
Yeah, and the story that I was going to share, like a big reason and my why for why I started a YouTube channel, American Money 101, is because of financial literacy. And, with what my day job is as a mortgage banker, I mean, application after application, Americans do not understand this stuff. They do not understand how money works. I see person after person after person making the exact same mistake. And I just feel like I was called to, share my story, to help educate on what I'm seeing. Because when your finances aren't in order and you're living a life a certain way, if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses or if you're spending beyond your means, you are never going to have any financial peace. And the reality is that once someone understands the money game and how money truly works, you can have a lot of the things that you want, but still exercise discipline and plan for the future and have peace. And so that's my why. My why for starting that YouTube channel was to educate, uh, inspire, and influence. So I want to educate people on how money works. I want to inspire them to make change, and I want to influence them to get the conversation started with their family and others, because when you are constantly it kind of goes along with what you were saying earlier, where if you are, it's also the position or the foundation that you're operating from. And if you're bringing this money in but those dollars are already spoken for, it's like all of your future earnings are going towards other things, and so that foundation is broken. And so it's really fixing the foundation and giving someone the correct operating formula, how to kind of structure their financial life. And then that bleeds over. If you have financial stress in your life, well, that's probably going to bleed over into your family and your other relationships and your career. And you might be staying up at night. It's going to, this one piece can cause so much stress in other areas. But when you have peace in this area, it's going to be easier to manage these other important aspects of your life.
Yeah, it's pretty insane how little education we get on this topic. So I really admire, and I'm excited to see where you take that, because I think it's very, very, very needed in society today.
Well, thank you.
Um,
All right, number 6.
so number 6 is kind of another takeaway of just me as my personal perspective as a person in the audience, just looking again at what's the common denominator between all these different successful people. And another one that kind of fits into what we were just talking about is just how every single one of these speakers that are all, in 9-figure type wealth, 100+ million dollars of wealth, and a lot of these different individuals, how, again, it's not about the money. If you had to, poll every single one of these speakers about what the number one thing that's most important to them, it wasn't money. For every one of these people, it was time. And just really understanding the value of time and using that as one of your goals, possibly. I know it's one for me, to then, in a sense, reverse engineer. So if your number one goal isn't money, it's time. Obviously, money is providing you the opportunity to do a lot with your time and to more than even physical possessions, be able to provide experiences for family and friends and people that you love. But again, more important than the money is the time. And if you've identified that as being important to
Mhm.
you, reverse engineering your calendar, your strategy on how you're running your business, all these different things can then be very intentionally designed to give you more time. So, Ryan Pineda, the guy that puts on this entire event, he's got over 7 companies that are doing multiple multi-million-dollar businesses. He's got 7 of them. Obviously, got a ton going on right now. Seems so overwhelming from the outside, but he doesn't work on the weekends. He leaves no later than 5 or 6 o'clock at night to be home with his wife and 3 kids in the evening. He's
Mhm.
so focused and intentional on that, again, that time, that he's then reverse engineered, where he's got different tasks delegated to other people to allow him to do that. He's got everybody in his team and his company on the same culture that they also really just respect and honor that time, where it's just, I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but it's just the common denominator with all these speakers is just how their biggest, most important thing that they're focused on is time. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that as we get older, we value more and more and more. I know you being a dad with 2 kids, a lot of that time probably is, for your kids, being around and having that quality over quantity, just that quality time with them. And I know that seems like a pretty obvious takeaway from this event, but it's just, again, something that just was over and over and over discussed by
Yeah.
every one of these speakers.
I'm actually making some content on this right now, and how school or traditional education doesn't teach us this. What we're taught in our education system is go to school, get good grades, go to college, repeat that cycle, and then go get a good job where we trade our time for money. And when you have that approach, you have very little control over your time and your money, because you're trading your time for your money. And that's why I love the jobs that we have. As a real estate agent, you have the ability to control your time and your income. And for me, as a banking loan officer, I have the same thing. I can control my time and my money with what I do. Either how much or how little I work, when I work, where I work. Another example that I'll use, after the divorce that I went through 6 years ago, my kids were both in second grade at the time, and I was just completely overwhelmed. I had just changed careers. I was on 100% commission, so I had just gotten off of the salary, gone into 100% commission. I had these kids who were in second grade. They needed help with, their homework, you know, just family things, doing laundry, domestic responsibilities, cooking meals every night, cleaning up the house, and dishes, laundry. There's so many things, and I had to ask myself, these are really important things, because I believe that having a house that's in order, it brings peace to everyone there. So it was definitely a priority. But so was it the best use of my time doing these things? And I decided that it wasn't. I decided that they were important, but that it was not the best use of my time. And so what I did is I hired a live-in nanny, even though at the time, from a financial perspective, that was a big leap of faith. I didn't have the financial resources where that was just an afterthought. I mean, that was a really, really big step for me, but it was one of the best decisions that I ever made, because what it did is it allowed me to do exactly what you described, hand off all of those important tasks that are important, but are not part of my 20%, because my 20% is having the ability to go create an income for myself and my family. So I handed these things off, and it allowed me to be more intentional and have higher quality with my career, to where I was then able to increase my income that, then covered the cost of the live-in nanny.
Yeah, one last point on that, maybe even exercise for some of our viewers or listeners is just take out a piece of paper and just make 3 columns. Column 1 is $10 an hour. Column 2 is $100 an hour. And column 3 is $1,000 an hour. Or you could even make one that's $10,000 an hour if you're creating and maybe self-employed and building a business. and then just think through your typical day, your typical week, and just think through every single task that takes you, 5 or 10 minutes or longer. Going grocery shopping, personal things, a lot of the things you're just discussing about just the keeping your home tidy and making it a place of peace and productivity for your family and your kids. But then also with your business, same idea, just really, um, putting these different tasks into columns, and then just it gives you a different perspective on this, where then you can look and say, you know what, it takes me an hour and a half when it's all said and done to go to King Supers, get all the groceries, and bring them home. Is it worth maybe the $10 or $15 fee to get the Instacart or Uber Eats, or somewhere to just have that taken off my plate and just done for me? For
Mhm.
me as a business owner, I'm really, really big on just virtual with my apartment, the job that I was doing before this. But I really just, I guess, implore people that are listening or watching this, if you are a business owner and you're thinking of this from your business perspective, if you have some of these $10 an hour tasks, or even maybe it might be some of these $100 an hour tasks you don't even realize, you'd be amazed at how effective and just efficient these virtual assistants, a lot of them are in the Philippines, what they can do that you probably don't even realize that they can do. And if nothing else, maybe just type that into Google. Give me some ideas for what a VA, a virtual assistant, can provide. Maybe give more context when you're searching this about what industry you're in, or whatever it may be. But that's just such an affordable way to offload a lot of those low hanging fruit tasks that are just taking up a lot of your time and preventing you from being committed to, again, that 20% that's going to really give you progress towards your goals.
Yeah.
Um,
And not only that, I'd like to get your opinion on this as well, but would you agree that a lot of times it's those tasks, the ones that you're describing, that you need to hand off or delegate, that really prevent someone from going truly deep on the work they need to?
Oh, for sure. You're going to half-ass it. You're going to be burnt out. You're going to be tired when it comes time to do the important stuff. You're not going to have the same level of energy and commitment, and you're not going to give it nearly as good of a performance, and get as good of success from what you're doing. So
Hmm.
for sure. And
Yeah.
just one last note on that: you guys would be amazed at how cheap this is. Um, a few years ago when I first started using VAs, it was like $2.75 to $3.50 an hour. Now we're up into more like that, probably $4.50 to $5 an hour. You can find these people if it's a specific task. You can go to a website called Fiverr, Fiverr.com. That would be one example if you're maybe in a space where you need help with websites or different visual graphic design, that kind of stuff. Or again, there's all kinds of companies out there that just provide these VAs for all sorts of just administrative tasks. It could be even something if you're a one-man show and you own a window cleaning business, and you're on the phone, answering phone calls every 30 minutes, and it's preventing you from staying on task and cleaning windows. You could have a VA just taking those calls. They speak perfect English, and basically being that secretary, that assistant, gives you more credibility. You look like more of a legitimate business, and it's just amazing how much they can help you. That was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Was just really leaning into the virtual assistants.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that that first step, the act of taking that step and handing those responsibilities off, I think that's probably the hardest thing to do. And unless you've really done it before, or like in my case, for example, it was so hard to do that. But like you're describing, it's possible, and it's reasonable, and there are options, and there's, domestic options, there's virtual options, like it can be done. So thank you for sharing that. All right, last point here, and I know that you did touch on this a little bit, but I did want you to just talk about some of the other speakers. I know that Tim Tebow had a story that you wanted to share, and kind of as we wrap up, just any inspiring stories from any of the other speakers, and then any other, like, did you pick up on a certain energy from all of the speakers, maybe just the attendees? Like, what was that like?
So the first part of that question. So guys, I'll also in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, If you go to the episode and you click show notes, just the bottom part of the episode, I'll go ahead and put in just links for a few of these different speakers, just social media, Instagram handles or whatever, wherever they're most popular, where they're putting most of their content out on. So you guys can kind of look into some of these people on your own and just see if you connect with any of them. But since this was predominantly, real estate related, the few people that I mentioned earlier, Chris Crone, both Chris and Crone are with a K. This guy from Utah. What's funny, another just kind of similarity with a lot of these people, a lot of them were high school or college dropouts. Very few had, formal education. They
Hmm.
just took action and they were just very consistent. And now we're seeing these people on stage 20, 15, 20, 25 years into their careers. It's not overnight success. It took them, years and years and years, but now they're at this place that very few people can get to. Chris Crone probably was the person that most impacted me on that note, just seeing somebody that's at a similar age to me, yet in a very, very different economic class. And though that being because of just starting young and just being, some level of luck as far as getting into the right thing at the right time and realizing that he was passionate and just good at what he was doing. He started out at wholesaling. We can maybe do an episode later on just explaining to people that don't know what wholesaling is, but he just basically turned that into a fix and flip type business. And then now that became more of a buy and hold strategy where he's got outside investors now. And, he's built this entire company out of it. But he was definitely just somebody that was very inspiring, just again, because of the similarities with our age and just, he's a similar looking guy, just likes working out, likes, outdoors, all that kind of stuff. So he'd be one. Ryan Pineda, so just the host again of WealthCon. So he was, the main guy. He did several different speeches and different sessions when he was involved. He's the one that wanted to really create this different style of conference where it had a little bit of a religious influence to it. So it was just kind of unique, and I really enjoyed just hearing a little bit about that side of business, which is not talked about nearly as much as kind of the mainstream stuff. Just talking through some of his daily habits and how some of those are really focused on just the gratitude, but also just dialing in his mission or his core values through just his faith and just being aligned, not only just himself, but who he hires, just who he decides to work with, just having similar attributes like being, a man of faith or a person of faith, and just, working with people that have similar values to him, which I think helps him kind of read people and whether or not they're going to be a good fit for him to do business with. So thought that was another good one. Ryan Pineda's got a great podcast. He's somebody that is just very, very, very consistent with social media and just posting on all platforms and just doing a phenomenal job with that. And just kind of realizing that, it's again similar to what we're talking about. It didn't just happen overnight. When COVID hit, he realized that, hey, there's going to be some opportunities with just being more present on social media. And it was really only like 3-4 years ago when he first got started doing that. And in just 3 or 4 years, he goes from, posting videos on TikTok and Instagram to, selling out over 1,000 people in this venue for 3 full days of engagement with these speakers. I mean, just seeing the level of success over a very short period of time, but
Yeah.
because of this consistency. So Ryan Pineda would be another one. I mentioned Will Grimes. He's my good friend and also one of my mentors that's here in Colorado. I just really enjoyed his unique take on just not being so, focused on real estate specifically, but just talking through his life experiences as a cop and also in the military and how each of those different kind of chapters of his life have led him to becoming the leader that he is today and learning from his mistakes and just, really embracing whatever gets thrown at you throughout life, looking at that as an opportunity, not as a negative. So
Hmm.
really enjoyed Will. Will has events, every few months here in Denver. So if you guys are interested in ever seeing him in person, feel free to reach out and I'll let you guys know when the next one is. And then Thatch. So Thatch is a Vietnamese immigrant, seeing somebody that could, at the time when he came to the States, could barely speak English and had, very little given to him, literally just, the clothes on his back, and sharing, a two, uh, 2 bedroom, 1 bath house with him, his mom and dad, and I think he said 5 siblings, to go from that to where he's at today with over 100 million of homes. What I really enjoyed about him specifically was giving me a unique take on the two strategies that are most common with real estate investing would be what's known as a fix and flip. So you find a house that needs some improvement. It's also called value add, where you see, a home that's in bad shape and you see some opportunity to add value and then turn around and sell it right away or in a short period of time. That's a fix and flip. That's very common in real estate investing. However, he just was very clear and very motivating to the audience, explaining how where you can make a lot of money doing that. The only way to really build true wealth is more through the buy and hold strategy, meaning that you do something similar where you're finding a home that has opportunity for adding value to it, fixing it up, still doing that similar fix and flip type mentality. He's really big on BRRRR.
Hmm.
BRRRR is a Bigger Pockets acronym for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And that's just a strategy that's specific to real estate investing. And that's where he really leans into and really motivates people to at least consider going that route, because that gives a lot of additional benefits. The main one being tax benefits through being able to write off your depreciation and just some other stuff going on with your taxes. So it's not how much you make, it's also how much you keep. And by doing that strategy, you're able to pay little or even no taxes, because you're constantly doing that formula of the repeat on the BRRRR strategy.
Okay.
I know you're actually the one that introduced me to Thatch a couple weeks ago, and tons of energy, just great guy. So definitely, he's probably my favorite personality as far as people to follow on social media. He's very, very entertaining. And then last but not least, yeah, Tim Tebow. So being a Broncos fan and just loving, you know, Denver Broncos former and current players, Tim Tebow's obviously one of those. Um, the story that I mentioned about him. So I honestly he wasn't my favorite speech, even though he was the keynote for one of the days, but he just had this kind of unique thing where he talked about his wife, who's also famous. She's a Miss South Africa is what she won. Actually, I think she also won Miss Universe. But so I'll take two quick stories about his speech. Number one, he, is very well known for being a missionary throughout the majority of his life, going down to Haiti and the Philippines and really serving a lot of different communities over the years with his family. There's this one boy that he met in Haiti that was pretty severely disabled physically and had some serious health issues going on, and they basically were able to, when they were down there, get to know him, and he just lit up the room. Though I mean, he had just had so many things up against him in life, yet he just had this contagious smile. It was just very, just lightened up the room around him. And they basically went down every year to visit the same village, the same community where this boy was. One year when they got down there, they just realized that he was deteriorating in health. So they took him to the hospital nearby. Basically, were told that he wasn't going to be looked at because of him being disabled, which was horrible to think about. But they saw it almost as like a stigma type thing where the doctors in the hospital would not help him. So then they went to a second hospital, same thing. Then they went to a third hospital, same thing. Finally went to the fourth hospital and they agreed to see him, but it was kind of well, we'll see him, but only after we help all these other people first.
Yeah.
Basically, unfortunately, this boy passed away like 15 minutes after being told that he was going to, be looked at this fourth hospital. So very sad story, but he has in his home, his wife, decorates the entire house, but he's got kind of two rooms, the gym and the kind of theater or area where he watches football, where those are the two rooms he has a little bit of control on what's on the walls and that kind of stuff. And he just has this picture of this boy just in this area where he's, a room that he goes into every day. And, when you're in this room watching football and you see the Florida Gators, his, college alumni team lose the game or whatever it is, just something negative that's kind of affecting him, and he's down about something or upset, angry, just some emotion that's being evoked from something that in the big scheme of things is not important. He just has this reminder, this picture that he sees, and just instantly it's just kind of like a reset in his mind, where he sees that and then is reminded that there's things much more important in life than a game or whatever it may be. I just thought that was a really cool story, but also something that would be um, something I want to try and do. Just have some reminder like that in my house. I'll
Yeah.
probably use my sister, who also has some disabilities, but also something similar to this boy, where she's just very happy and just doesn't care about material possessions, and is just she's an angel on earth. Just an incredible human being. So I kind of use my sister as that similar type
Mm.
person in my life, but just
That's
having something like
cool.
that, some way to kind of trigger your mind and just stay focused on what's truly important. So that was just one story I thought was good. And then one more really quick. His wife, South Africa, won Miss South Africa, and then went on to win Miss Universe. After she won Miss South Africa, it was about 3 months until Miss Universe, and she still was predominantly, she spoke Afrikaans, which is the native language in South Africa. That's her primary language. Her English was still not the best. And she knew that she was going to have these questions at the Miss Universe pageant. And even though it's only for maybe 15 minutes at the most, where she's going to be asked these questions and needing to have, good, good a presence speaking English in front of everybody,
Mhm.
she just realized I need to just improve on this, and I'm going to be so focused on just this one thing for the next 3 months going into this competition. She vowed to just only speak English with her family, her every single person she's around, just not speaking a single word of Afrikaans for that 3 months leading up to this
Okay.
Miss Universe pageant. It sounds pretty basic and simple, but harder, I think, than people probably realize, especially just being totally 100% committed to doing that. And he really credits that one thing to probably the biggest factor into how she ended up winning the Miss Universe, which is obviously very
Mhm.
difficult to do with 50, tons of countries competing in this, and just having the confidence going into Miss Universe because she gave it 100% and just really was committed to the process. And
Mhm.
I'm sure there's a reason for why she won. Part of that, I'm sure, is just her level of commitment, and just how poised she was when it came time to perform and be asked those questions. And so I don't know if you guys
Mhm.
got anything out of either of those stories, but those are just a couple that I thought were pretty interesting with Tim.
Yeah. I mean that's powerful and yeah, very, very powerful. So thank you for sharing.
But yeah, guys, I think there's definitely some value in going to events like that, whether it be in the industry that you work in, or even whether it be just something to improve personally. There's stuff like Tony Robbins that are just more just self help, where it's not related to your business. But if you've never been to something like that, I just recommend maybe considering it. Maybe find another person or two that has similar, goals or values, where they also want to kind of improve in an area in their life, and maybe consider going to one, because
Yeah.
it's pretty motivating, and just kind of gives you an extra kind of kick in the butt to come back home afterwards and work a little bit harder, and be kind of zeroed in on what's important to get to the goal that you're trying to achieve.
We'll focus on that for this week, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week with a brand new episode.
Yeah, guys, and don't forget, please, 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 if you could, do us a solid and hit the like and subscribe button on your podcast platform that you're listening to us on, whether it be Spotify or Apple,
That's
wherever it
right.
may be. That's going to help us hopefully spread the word a little bit more, and just kind of get us a little bit momentum going as we kind of get this thing kicked off. So we'd really appreciate that if you guys could.
That's right. God bless, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, everybody, have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.